Hello everyone, and once again, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and everything else good in between, and welcome back to another average review. In the last video I uploaded, I said it wouldn't be the only review I'd be posting on December 25th, Christmas Day, and I wasn't lying, because right now, I'm gonna be reviewing the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse Collector Edition Firestorm. Now, starting off with the front of the box, and it looks very nice, at least from the front. We see the usual DC Multiverse staples, like the logo, the black and white color scheme, and the name down here. But the box is a bit wider, and there's some nice foiling on the nameplate, and this McFarlane Collector Edition text right here. Now, on the side, we see a bit more of that foil text, along with Firestorm's name once again, and also informing us that this Firestorm is from Crisis on Infinite Earths, which I'd like to mention is one of my favorite DC stories. Now, despite the fact it says that, looking at the back of the box, that isn't from Crisis on Infinite Earths. That's a very modern Firestorm art, and, well, it doesn't even match the figure in the packaging. So it's just a load of confusing choices on that part. Now, I would like to mention, the super hard-to-find Platinum variant did have the color scheme that was shown on the back of the box, but it doesn't match the main, more common release that is advertised on the front and side of the box. Now, I'm not gonna let that spoil my Christmas, but it's still a very odd choice. But hey, let's get this guy out of his packaging already. Well, in the last review I posted today, we reviewed a figure that came with parts to build Mr. Freeze. Now, I guess we're moving from Snow Miser to Heat Miser, even though Firestorm has mainly matter transformation powers instead of just fire powers, but shut up, shut up, shut up. Because we got a figure to talk about right now. Now, if I'm correct, which I hope I am, because I don't like spreading misinformation, this is an all-new sculpt, which is very appreciated in the $30 collector line. And hey, the sculpt is pretty dang nice, but in terms of the paint, I have one major complaint. You can see it on camera, but it's a bit more noticeable in real life. The red, very bright, you know, very, almost superpowers-esque, you know, like the Kenner Superpowers line. But then the yellow is a very mustardy, darker, duller yellow compared to what you'd expect compared to this red. I mean, if they just darkened the red or brightened the yellow, I wouldn't really have any problems, but now I have to live with this minor gripe with a $30 piece of plastic. Okay, I'm over it now. Let's get into a bit more detail about, you know, the sculpt and paintwork on this guy, because, you know, it's nice to take a look at it. Looking at his face, it's a lot softer than someone like Superman or Batman, but that's fine with Firestorm. He's a younger guy, and hey, superheroes looking different is always a plus. Since, I mean, how else are you gonna tell them apart when they're not in their costumes or in their secret identities? Firestorm has got his bright, white, pupilless eyes, and man, thinking about it, these kind of like white eyes that you see on a lot of superheroes like Batman or Nightwing or Robin, they would look very weird and creepy in real life. Moving past that, though, the fire on top of his head has been very nicely sculpted and painted. It's nice and translucent, and it's even got some dry brushing in there to bring out the fiery details, which is a nice touch. His torso, besides the mismatched yellow compared to the red, is also very nicely sculpted and painted. It's got these two fins coming out above his shoulders, which are very, very 1980s. The logo is very nice, from these white lines going across his torso to these red dots right here to this red dot right here representing the sun. It's all very nicely sculpted and painted. Although I would like to mention, these little white triangles around this red dot, they're actually not sculpted, they're painted. Not a bad thing, I just think that's a bit interesting. The sleeves on Firestorm are nice and baggy, just as how they should be, because, it's a really nice, unique design for a superhero costume, and honestly, you could probably say that about the entirety of Firestorm's design. It's very, very well done. And hey, another nice touch is that the arms aren't exactly mirrored. You can see at the forearms, they bunch up in different ways at the tight glove pieces, which, like a lot of other things on this figure, very nice touch. I'm going to save talking about the hands for later, since there's going to be a lot of them to talk about in the accessories section, but just know that they are very nice hands, the ones he comes packaged with. His belt and boxers look very nice, as well as the back of the figure. Yeah, I didn't forget about it this time. I actually remembered that action figures can be viewed from more than the front. Moving down to the legs, and actually I think the thigh pieces might be reused? I don't know, it's kind of hard to tell sometimes. But hey, very nicely sculpted, same with the boots. They all look very nice, although I do find it interesting how there's a lot of extra details on, just the boots and nothing else. All the other parts of the figure, the most extra details you get are some very nice fabric tugs that add some realism to the design. But then the boots have a lot of extra paneling and texturing. Not a complaint, I just think it's a bit odd. What isn't odd, though, is the articulation, which is your standard DC Multiverse affair. His head is on a dumbbell joint, which lets him look this far up, pretty nice for a flying character. This far down, which is also pretty nice. He gets actually a very good amount of tilt, and all the way around. Now, he's got his rotator cuffs in the shoulders, which gives you some movement around there. He's got arms that can raise up a little above 90 degrees when using the rotator cuff, and can move forward and back. A little limited in the forward and back by the shoulder pads, though. He's got bicep swivel with 360 degree turning, along with double jointed elbows with a pretty much perfect bend. That's very nice. He's got McFarlane-style wrist articulation, where it can move up and down, but then you can swivel it at the wrist and at the tip of the forearm to make it move forward and back, or just pretty much any direction. They're a very nice wrist articulation system. Now, in terms of torso articulation, he's got a diaphragm joint and a ball-jointed waist. They don't get that much hunch forward, a little more than usual, but not much. A very good arch back, though. You can get him into some pretty good flying poses with that head articulation, and he gets twist at the diaphragm and the waist, along with tilt side to side. Now, he's got hips that can kick forward this far, about 90 degrees, I'd say. They can also split this far, which is very nice, along with a bit of twist in the hip, which is, might be a little more than usual, but I rarely test it, because I said this in the last video, who uses the McFarlane leg-turning articulation that barely does anything? What people do use? Double jointed knees, which have a pretty good bend, along with the McFarlane ankle articulation that swivels at the base of the boot, pivots side to side, and hinges backwards and forwards, along with toe articulation. Overall, pretty good movement on this Firestorm right here. About what you'd expect from a McFarlane DC Multiverse. Moving on to comparisons, let's start out with the standard male and female comparisons for this review series. The Marvel Legends Renew Your Vows, Spider-Man, and Spinneret. Now, for the only other Firestorm-specific character I have, at least I think, we have the DC Multiverse Blackest Night Deathstorm. Yeah, I've had the dead version of Firestorm longer than a regular Firestorm. To be fair, it was to build a Build-A-Fig, and also this figure looks plain awesome since it's got a flaming skull. Also, McFarlane, if you make, a Killer Frost, we can actually have, a different Firestorm specific character. Please, you'll make all 31, 32 if you count me, Firestorm fans happy, please. Now, since this Firestorm is advertised as being from Crisis on Infinite Earths, I thought I'd do some Crisis-specific comparisons, starting out with our two Supermen. The Atomic Skull 2-pack Superman on the left, representing the Superman of Earth Prime, and on the right, the Hush Superman with some gray temples on the sides of his hair, representing the Superman of Earth 2. Probably the two most important characters in Crisis on Infinite Earths, besides the Monitor and Anti-Monitor. Another incredibly important character during the Crisis was Barry Allen the Flash. I have two versions here. The left is the DC Collectibles DC Essentials Flash, and the right is the McFarlane Toys Rebirth Flash. Personally, I prefer using the Essentials as Barry, and the Rebirth version as his successor and nephew, Wally West. Now, for two characters that were slightly less important during Crisis, but are still, some of the most popular DC characters ever, I've decided to bring out the Nightfall Batman and the Last Night on Earth Wonder Woman, since it's the only McFarlane Wonder Woman I have. Man, I wish that classic edition in the collector line was way easier to get a hold of. 'Cause boy, I'd like a Wonder Woman that actually fits in with my Justice League display. For some villains that weren't the main threats of Crisis, but were still pretty important, we have the Power Armor Lex Luthor, and the Page Puncher's version of Brainiac, since, he's got that appropriate head shape for Crisis on Infinite Earths. The DC classic Darkseid Megafig, along with his very Kenner Superpowers-esque cape. And the one I'm sure you've been waiting for, the dreaded Anti-Monitor. But as is tradition on this channel, here's the McFarlane Collector Edition Firestorm with Hitmonkey and Goliath. Now, we've seen what this Firestorm can do on his own, but what kind of accessories does he come with? Well, he comes with the collector versions of the trading card and figure stand. That accounts to less cropping on the artwork and foil on both. Not very exciting. Here's what the back of the card says. Pause if you want to read it. Once again, it says Crisis on Infinite Earths, but this ain't Crisis on Infinite Earths. And the trading card has its own accessory. This trading card stand, all the collector edition figures come with it. It's pretty useless. And a lot of people call it the $10 trading card stand, cause, well, sometimes collector editions come with barely more than this, which is always very stupid. But that's not the case with this Firestorm, because he comes with a heck of a lot more, so let's see some of the alternate hands. Well, he comes with your tried and true pair of fists, a pair of open palm hands for flight poses like this, a pointing or even maybe finger gun hand, an open palmed grippy hand, this similarly open flaming hand with some translucent plastic. This is the left hand that he came packed in the box with. This power blast hand that makes it look like he's shooting meatballs at his enemies. And this pair of almost star-shaped power fists. In fact, this one on his right is the other hand he came packed in box with. If you're at home counting, that's a total of 10 hands or 5 pairs of hands. That is nothing to scoff at in terms of the accessory department, especially considering all the new tooling that went into this guy. Now, as I mentioned earlier in the video, this guy retails for around $30, and you can say what you want about the McFarlane collector line, no matter how negative. Honestly, I'll probably agree with most of it. There's a lot of problems with this collector line subset, but this Firestorm is an example of what these collector line figures should be. New sculpts, lot of articulation and accessories, and overall, just a complete package for that specific character, or just maybe one we wouldn't get otherwise, like someone like Captain Carrot. And I know, I complained about the mustardy yellow compared to the bright red, but honestly, that's more of a personal taste kind of thing rather than a objective thing. And honestly, even with that problem, I'm still fully comfortable with giving the McFarlane Collector Edition Firestorm a 10 out of 10. If you disagree, and you might, feel free to leave why in the comments, you know. I'm always open to hear other people's thoughts on things, you know, it gives me less of a biased viewpoint. Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, and don't worry, I still got one more Christmas-related review ready for today. But for now, bye-bye!